Hello, my name is Grace Bouchard, and today I am here to tell my version of Prince Kindhearted. Prince Kindhearted lived in his castle his whole entire life. He had no experiences, no journeys, and most importantly, no other interactions other than with his father, the king, his servants, and his horse. He had all this courage built up inside of him that he decided it was time to go speak with his father and ask for his blessing to go on this journey. As he walked to his father, he thought, what can possibly go wrong? And as he walked into his room where his father, the king, was, he was getting ready to ask him. And his father stood up from his chair and asked, "My son, what can I help you with?" And he said, "I'm here to ask for your blessing to go on this so-called journey." And as his father walked closer to him, he said, "My loving son, you may go on this journey as long as you take this sword." And it's a sword on the mantle. And as his father was grabbing the sword off the mantle, Prince Kindhearted was confused onto why he was giving him the sword. And as his father handed him the sword, Prince Kindhearted asked, "Why the sword and not a servant?" And his father said, "Son, this sword has been with our family for generations and generations. And I even took this sword on with me to my journey that I went on when I was your age." And as proud and kind-hearted Prince Kindhearted was, he took his sword from his father and left to go to the stable to get his horse ready. And as he placed his sword proudly on his waist, he hopped onto his horse and giddy up away. And as he was getting up away, he did not look behind to see that a servant was lurking behind. He wanted this journey to become a wiser and a future king that he needed to become for his kingdom. So he galloped away. And it's been a few days on this journey. So he decided to become dehydrated, thirsty, sweating, as he was in this hot desert on his journey for whoever it was going to. And as he spotted a river, he galloped on his horse to the river to stop for a drink of water. And as he took his sword off, planted it onto his horse just for a second to go get a sip of water, he did not know that the servant was still lurking behind. And as he got up from getting a sip of water, he turned around to see that a servant was taking his sword from his horse, latching it off and grabbing it. And as the servant saw that he was caught, he was worried and just started running away. The prince galloped away onto his horse and started following the servant to try to catch him. And once he was able to stop the servant, he said, "Why are you taking my sword?" The servant turned to look at him and said, "I wanted to take something great value to you because you have too much kindness in your heart." The prince hopped off his horse and asked, "What's in it for you?" And the servant responded back, "I'm hoping this great value sword I'm taking away will let the kindness slip away from you." And as much as the prince realized that he may show up to his castle with no sword his father entrusted with him, he decided that it wasn't worth it, that his kindness to him was too much more important. So he said, "Take it." And the servant was confused and asked why. And he said, "My kindness is too much value to me more than this sword." So the prince hopped back onto his horse, and he galloped away, leaving the servant way behind in this hot desert. And as he showed up and galloped back to his castle and not finishing the journey he wanted to go on so badly, he was wondering what was his father think when he showed back up with no sword. And so he showed up and walked in to see his father, the king. His father realized that something was off, so he stood up, walked over to his son, and realized he had no sword. And once Prince Kindhearted realized his father saw no sword, he started looking trembling and worried. But the father, the king, was okay with not him returning with his sword. All he cared was that he returned with the kindness he still stored in his heart. And so once he said, "My loving son, I don't mind you not returning back with the sword." And the prince was like concerned. And the father, the king, finished what he was saying and said, "All I care is that you returned with the kindness you left with." And the Prince Kindhearted was happy and glad that his father wasn't disappointed, and that he did come back a wiser, kind-hearted prince and future king to his kingdom. And that is my story of Prince Kindhearted. Thank you.